reach the ground. That is a pretty common thing for many of us slightly shorter people in the motorcycle industry. In this video, I'm going to be giving you some top tips on how to get those feet to the ground. The Girl on a Bike. I'm currently sat on a Honda CRF, and it is a prime example of a very tall motorcycle for the majority of us. There seem to be a lot of bikes out there on the market that are just really tall, and many of us don't have the leg length to reach the ground. So I'm 169 centimeters tall, and on this bike the ground is a very long way away. I cannot reach the ground on both sides, but thankfully there are some things that you can do to your motorcycle to give you the extra confidence that being able to reach the ground brings. So in this video, we're going to talk through those things and give you some ideas on the modifications for your own motorcycle. So this video is part of a series that I'm doing with Öhlins Suspension. So I'm here in Sweden at their headquarters, and suspension is very much one of those topics that seem to be a dark art, that seems to be really overwhelming, incredibly technical, probably because it is quite technical, but actually with things explained simply and in easier language, it's actually something that we can all be a lot more empowered about. So please check out the other videos in this series. And so with that, I have been talking to the team here at Öhlin about some of the things that we can do to our motorcycles to help bring us the confidence of being able to reach the ground. When you're out there, particularly on off-road motorcycles, you find yourself in a rut or in a bit of rocky terrain or something, you go to reach the ground and you can't reach it, it's very easy to fall over. And myself as a rider have two of my motorcycles lowered, actually three of my motorcycles lowered. So my Husqvarna TE 2-stroke that I did Red Bull Romaniacs on, I have lowered that motorcycle, and my small Honda rally bike is also lowered, and then my big buddy rally bike, which I did the Africa Eco Race doing the original Dakar, I've also lowered and made a modification to the seat. Now, there is definitely a little bit of an environment or energy maybe on the internet with some of the keyboard warriors where lowering your motorcycle is an absolute no-go. They come from the manufacturers, set up for the ergonomics and the design, the balance, the ratio that they should be at, which I completely agree with. As soon as you start messing with anything to do with the setup of your motorcycle, you are going to be changing the way that that bike has been designed. But I also think that confidence as a rider is so powerful in your overall performance progression and capability on a motorcycle that there is definitely room for a compromise between changing how it was designed to bringing you the confidence as a rider. And speaking to some of the team here at Öhlin, there is definitely that energy of confidence is key. And one of the key things that suspension does when set up correctly is give us confidence as a rider. So the first option that you have on your motorcycle is adjusting your sag on a motorcycle. So what is sag? I'm going to do this really briefly. This isn't meant to be a technical suspension video, but this sag is how much your motorcycle is going to displace the suspension with the weight of your body onto its suspension. So you can see at the moment the bike is sitting at this height. If I had a ruler, you'd be able to see it, but as I put my weight on, the bike should take a little bit of a sag for my body weight, and I can see that this bike immediately is too stiff for my body weight, and so there is not the correct spring in here for my body weight. Now check out my other suspensions videos if you want to know how to get the best setup for your suspension. And I will talk to you a lot more about sag, and also the spring that is in there, because changing the spring is a very economical way to bring you a better suspension setup. Actually, it's a vital way to give you your suspension setup. Now, you can adjust your sag, and adjusting your sag is changing how much the weight of you, the weight of the motorcycle is putting onto the spring and the suspension at calm, like right now. And by adjusting your sag, you could put it to the lower end of that tolerance to lower the bike a tiny bit. Now, adjusting your sag is something that's really going to give you a very small variation in the height of your bike. It's not going to give you huge gains. And so if it's just a tiny bit of extra range that you need to reach the ground, it could be an option. But by adjusting your sag too much, you are going to massively reduce the performance of your suspension. So be careful with that one, and do make sure that you've got the right spring in your bike. And remember, my other video will explain that a lot more. Option number 2 is using a lowering link. So this is working on your rear shock, and a lowering link is going to replace the dog bone or the cuba. The technicals behind this we don't need to get into, but the lowering link is at the bottom of the suspension here, so you can see the dog bone. There's a couple of different systems that you could use, and it's effectively going to lower the position of the suspension within the bike, which is going to lower the whole bike closer to the ground. That is the system that I've done on my hard enduro, my rally bikes, and I've managed to get about a 40mm lowering of my bike through that system. It is pretty cost effective, it's quite easy to do, it's 100% reversible. The cons of it are the fact that you are going to have a lower ground clearance, so if you're doing anything like hard enduro, trying to go over logs and rocks and stuff, you're going to have less clearance underneath the bike, and it is going to change the sort of geometry and the feel of your bike for things like top speed, for example. Bearing in mind that I've done it to my rally bike, and in some of the rallies I'll be hitting 145 kilometers per hour across a desert, I haven't found it to be more of a con than the pro of being able to reach the ground and not fall over. So that is a lowering link. So the third option goes hand in hand with the previous option, and that is looking at the front end. Anytime you do any kind of lowering on your bike, front or rear, you want to make sure that you're doing them evenly to keep the balance of your bike correct. If you just do the back end, you're going to be riding really squat and it's going to feel awful. So the front end, you're going to be looking at the triple clamps at the top of your front forks. These triple clamps clamp the forks in, and there is scope on pretty much nearly all bikes to be able to drop those forks slightly into the triple clamps. So the top of the suspension here is going to stick out slightly more at the top. You do need to be mindful of clearance with your handlebars, with wires and things like that, to make sure you're not pinching anything. And that's going to enable you to lower the front end of the bike as well to align to whatever you've done at the back. Pros and cons are very similar, and just make sure you're not pinching any cables when you do that. The next option doesn't actually involve your suspension at all, and that is your seat. So most seats are relatively straight and flat, I would say. It's very easy to get a custom seat made, or to get aftermarket thinned, scooped out, lowered seats, which is basically just a thinner seat. So on my rally bike, I sent off my actual KTM seat to a company called Coalfield Leather, and they redid the whole thing using the base of the seat that was actually from my original KTM, and put lovely memory foam and squidgy stuff and made it really nice for your bum. If you watch my other video on how to protect your bottom on a motorcycle, it will give you a bit more details about that seat. But effectively, you can get a thinner seat. By having a thinner seat, you're going to be deeper into the bike, which means your feet are going to be closer to the ground. Pros and cons. Pros, you're reaching the ground a little bit more. Cons, you're not going to get quite as big a game as far as reach to the ground, and you might find, depending on the materials that your seat is going to be made from, a reduction in comfort. If you go for a good custom seat, you shouldn't get a reduction in comfort because they'll use the right materials for it to be as thick as it is. So that is the seat option. The final option is a very, very good option, particularly if any of the things that I've talked about so far have overwhelmed you a little bit on the mechanical side. Talking about suspension, changing links, lowering stuff, it can be a little bit outside of our technical knowledge. And that's where we use the resources of experienced companies and organisations to help us with that. So I'm obviously here with Öhlins Suspension, and if you haven't seen the iconic gold suspension, then you will recognise it right here. Now, they have a network of distributors, dealers in over 62 countries around the world, and they are armed with all of the knowledge to get suspension set up for you correctly. So if you go on the website, you can find a local dealer and just go to them, tell them what your problem is, what your bike is, what sort of riding you want to do, what your goals are, the fact that you want to be able to reach the ground more easily, and they will be able to help to work with you to create a custom suspension setup for your motorcycle. The word custom suspension setup will probably make you go, yikes, I haven't got a bank account for that. I would encourage you not to be discouraged by the idea of custom, because actually there could be some really affordable options out there. You just need to have the conversations with them. And that will give you the options of the best way to get that reduction in height for your specific motorcycle. Now, there is one more thing that will enable the ground to feel closer without the ground feeling closer in any way at all. And that is actually focusing on how you can develop your skills as a rider so that you don't feel the need to be able to reach the ground. Now, I get a lot of you messaging and commenting on some of my posts, particularly when you meet me in person and realize that I'm not actually that tall, and think, how do you ride that bike? You can't even reach, can you even reach the ground? Can't you reach the ground? And on a lot of the bikes that I ride, particularly the big adventure bikes, I can't reach the ground on both sides. And so what I've done over the last few years is to work really hard on my skills to get myself to a point where I don't need to reach the ground in the same way, and to use the terrain around me. So trials riding is a really, really good way to increase your skills. It's very affordable as a sort of a segment industry into the sport. And around the world, there are lots of places where you can go and hire trials bikes, borrow the kit, have a play. And it's all about balance, slow maneuvering, clutch, throttle control, and really refined slow riding skills, which to me are the foundation of everything else. And if you actually look at some of the top rally hard enduro riders, a lot of them had a foundation in trials beforehand. So working on that skill and balance is really critical. And there's things that you can do at home every single day to help you with your balance. I challenge you to clean your teeth on one foot. And if you stand there cleaning your teeth on one foot, maybe it's too easy, you need to close your eyes as well, you will improve your balance. And anything that will help you with balance will help you on the motorcycle, keeping yourself upright. You can do static standing on your bike, where you just try and balance in the garage and stay still. All of these things that give you more balance is going to mean that when you are going slow, feeling a little bit more wobbly, you're less likely to wobble and less likely to reach the ground. You can then look to things in your environment to how you don't need to reach the ground. For example, you can see the traffic light up ahead turning red. Right, there's a curb on the left. Let's just scoot slightly closer to the curb so that my foot can reach the curb and I don't have to reach all the way to the ground. Maybe there's a bank on the side of the track that you can put your foot on, or a rock. Just use your environment. And the other thing is it's actually totally okay to drop your motorcycle as well. Depending on your motorcycle, they will be less happy with you dropping your motorcycle. But if we're talking about off-road motorcycles like this, they've literally been made for the fact that they're okay to be dropped. I do have another video on how to pick up a motorcycle. If you're now going, oh my goodness, I'm going to drop it, how do I pick it up? You are totally able to pick up your motorcycle, so check out that video. So that is a few tips and things to think about on how to lower a motorcycle. Get rid of all of the keyboard warriors that you hear on the internet and focus on what it is that's going to give you the most confidence on your motorcycle and what is going to be best suited to the motorcycle that you are riding. Let me know if you have any questions in the comments. Please tick the bell to get notifications of any future videos. I'm Vanessa Ruck, the girl on a bike, and hopefully I'll see you out there riding sometime soon.